My book, Out the Door, 10 Tales of Adventure, is now available to buy from amazon.co.uk, and I just wanted to give you a sneak preview about what this book contains. I'm going to read you the introduction, and I'm going to read you the blurb, so a little bit of a summary about what the book is about, and then I'm also going to tell you a little bit about the chapters inside this amazing book that I've spent the last 3 or 4 years writing. And it's just something that I'm incredibly proud of, and I can't wait for you to read. So this is a little bit of an introduction, and hopefully you're going to straight away love the book, you're going to like the idea, and you're going to purchase a copy. So, Out the Door, 10 Tales of Adventure. Let me read the blurb, let me read the summary on the back for you. One day, Matt shouldered a backpack and stepped out the door to a world of travel writing and adventures. Over the 5 years that followed, he ventured through 10 countries and 3 continents. From the lofty peaks of the Himalayas to the arid wastes of the Gobi Desert. On rickety Soviet-era sleeper carriages and futuristic Japanese bullet trains, he began to discover that travel was not always glamorous, and that the rough tales could inform him just as much as the smooth. Follow along in 10 stories as Matt travels by train, boat, bus, rickshaw, camel, flippers, and his own 2 feet to explore the world and slake his thirst for adventure. So that's the summary. That is the back of the book. Obviously, it's not going to have the not for resale. This is just what gets sent to you when you have your first kind of copy of the book. But I now want to read you the introduction as well, which give you a little bit more taster about what to expect inside the book. All my past had been but a prelude to the 5 years that lay ahead of me. Arabian Sands by Wilfred Thesiger. I have come to realise that there are no frontiers still to be discovered. The world has been conquered by the internet and the unbounded accessibility of social media. True, this is not yet evenly distributed, but the dark corners of the map are illuminated nonetheless, and for anyone born a generation too late to explore, that leaves only the stories of others. Thesiger, Thoreau and Thubron I am not. However, in the years that have succeeded my first adventures, I've come to realise that what remains truly unique about travel is the experience of an individual. An experience which leads to a different kind of conquest, one of the spirit. The sands, seas and snows of this earth may be unveiled, but the depths of a person's being will forever be a mystery that only self-discovery can eke out. For that reason, I continue to dream and believe that travel is a worthwhile pursuit. Since first stepping out the door as a wide-eyed teenager, I allowed myself the joy of not knowing the end of the road, and in the adventures that followed, I can say with some relief that I still can't see over the horizon, nor do I wish to. However, what I do know is that gradually, with each journey, my perspective of the world changed, and indeed, my place amongst it. Ultimately, that's what this book is about. Following your passions, and living through the dreams of youth. Not every tale is prodigious in its scope, but these are moments of freedom seen through the hopeful eyes of a traveller, willing to make mistakes and learn. For that reason, it is curious that I wrote this book, and then shelved it to gather dust. After all, these stories meant a great deal to me when they were written. In fact, they were created during a time when the world was chastened by a pandemic, and travel seemed like a distant memory. Despite this, during those bleak months, I allowed myself to live vicariously through these memories and dream that one day I might pack a bag and walk out the door to whatever end. Sure enough, normality did resume, and with it, my hunger for the horizon. Unfortunately, in the interim, these stories were forgotten, while I busied myself creating new ones. Yet once again I am home. The evenings are drawing in, and I sit at my writing desk looking through old notebooks by lamplight, sipping from a steaming cup of tea, beginning to wonder, where next? However, I would be remiss if I moved on once more and failed to share the very stories that form the foundation of my being. So follow along, dear reader, with the tales of a budding traveller who experienced 10 adventures that this writer, at least, believes worthy of telling. Matthew Lynch, November 2024. So that is kind of my reasoning behind the book, and that's really the drive that led me to write the book, and what I hope you can get from this as well. Now, a little more about the chapters. So there are 10 stories, of course, 10 chapters. First story is called Blackwater Coral, and that's set in Cairns in Australia and involves a night dive and one of the first great adventures I went on. Chapter 2 is Downtown Delhi. That is set in New Delhi in India, when I had a real shock experiencing a really tough country for the first time. Chapter 3, The Leeches of Tatopani. That is about a trek I was doing in Nepal in the Himalayas and had a few nasty surprises along the way. Chapter 4, Trans-Siberian Railway. Well, that's fairly self-explanatory. That's the time I took the Trans-Siberian Railway through Russia, Mongolia and China. And this is particularly about the section in Russia where I didn't leave the train for almost 3 days. Chapter 5, The Gobi Nomads. So when I was in Mongolia, I went on an incredible adventure down to the southern part of the country to the Gobi Desert and met some other fantastic travellers along the way. Chapter 6, Bamboo Mountain, one of the most memorable hikes of my life at a sacred mountain in China. Chapter 7, next stop North Korea. I visited the demilitarized zone in South Korea, which is the border between the South and the North, where they're technically still at war with one another. Chapter 8, Land of the Rising Sun. The first time I visited Japan. You never forget the first time you go to Japan, and this was kind of my interpretations and my experiences there. Chapter 9, The Night Markets of Taipei. One of the most incredible food experiences I've ever had travelling, and something that had to be put in this book. And finally, Chapter 10, Farewell and Adieu to You, Spanish Ladies. One of the worst outcomes to any of my adventures, and something that happened in the British Isles of all places. After all the travel I'd done, one of the toughest expeditions or adventures I ever went on was in the British Isles on the Channel Islands. And so that's a really kind of sobering reminder about the difficulties of adventures and the dangers that they contain as well. So those are the 10 adventures of Out the Door, and that's a little bit about the book. If you have any questions, please comment below. You can purchase this book on amazon.co.uk. It is $7.99, or the version on Kindle is $4.99. I hope you enjoy the book. Please give me some feedback. Please rate the book, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it.